So Kirsten and I are going to be working on some home renovations today so that we can potentially make our early retirement plans come to fruition sooner. But I did want to share with you what I've been doing on the Skeg of my Pearson 424 catch. To catch you up, I had a survey done in 2025, and the surveyor found some structural integrity issues on the fiberglass where a brass boot met the fiberglass along the Skeg. This was letting moisture in and causing potential damage to the Skeg. See this video for further information about the Skeg, the discovery of the issue, and how it came about. The issue wasn't significant enough to prevent my splashing for the 2025 summer season, but it was something that weighed on my mind, and after we got the boat back up on the dry and the hard, that was an issue that I started focusing on for the winter 2025-2026. Silver Heels was put to bed in a heated warehouse, and that's where I started the process of drying out the Skeg. I proceeded to sand down the problem areas and drill a couple holes into the bottom of the Skeg, all to allow moisture to weep out. As the winter started turning into the ensuing spring, I could see progress. I could see that moisture was weeping out. I took moisture meter readings and found that the Skeg was indeed drying, all except for one little problem area. So see this video of that work and a fuller description of what occurred up to that point. So if you've already seen those other two videos, then you're all caught up. And now what I decided to do was start sanding on that patch. I decided to sand that problem area down, or potential problem area down, for two reasons. One, I'm still new to a moisture meter. I don't have a lot of experience using a moisture meter and what the correct settings are. And I wanted to gain confidence in whether or not it was telling me the truth. So I wanted to sand down and see it for myself. Second, it was a nice flat surface. And up until now, I had been sanding an edge, kind of a narrow channel along the entire horizontal plane of the Skeg. And I wanted a nice flat surface to potentially repair fiberglass and demonstrate that I could repair the fiberglass relatively straightforwardly prior to working on that, what might be a little more difficult narrow channel along that horizontal plane of the Skeg. So I decided to sand down that area, and sure enough, as I sanded it down, and I did have to sand a wider area than I expected, but I did find moisture in there. You could see it. In addition, I actually found a seam where there was more hardened material next to what seemed like the original gel coat. So as I found the seam, it did seem like the water was lying and resting or running along that seam. I suspect that that might be where a previous fiberglass repair had occurred, or maybe it's just different materials, I don't know what, but there was definitely a spot or a seam along a diagonal axis where the materials were different, and it did seem like water was resting there. So as the calendar turns to April, everything is looking relatively encouraging. The Skeg is drying out. That patch where I sanded down looks dry. The only gotcha is that there is still water weeping, a little moisture is weeping out of the bottom of the Skeg where I drilled those holes. And that's a little bit of concern because, to keep delaying into April can jeopardize or truncate my sailing season. So I decided to start patching the fiberglass up at the surface areas. We're about to mix this epoxy right now. It's 5 parts West Marine Systems 105 resin with 1 part hardener. They sell pumps, which I actually have right here. So you could just attach the pump to the cover and then pump it out. I've used those pumps before, and I'll tell you, once you use them, they're hard to clean afterwards, right? So I just plan to pour 5 parts in here. I have a measuring bucket, right? So I can see when I get to 5 parts, and then I'll add a 1 part hardener, and we'll mix it all together. Get some gloves on. I might put a mask on if I smell fumes, and we'll start applying our patches. I pre-cut some fiberglass here to apply this patch area. I'm going to use these spreaders to spread the material evenly on the repair surfaces. Okay, that's about right. That's 5 parts epoxy resin, 1 part hardener. Now we're going to stir. Now we're going to have about 20 minutes of work time. So once I finish stirring here, we do have to work kind of fast, right? We can't dilly-dally. All right, we are going to put on some gloves and start applying this. Yeah, that'll work. Careful. I'm going to apply this. And we're going to get a square piece too. There we go. The repair ultimately required 3 coats of epoxy and some fiberglass. The process included cutting the fiberglass to the appropriate sizes for the repair areas, cleaning the surface area, mixing the epoxy, applying the epoxy by brushing it on the surface, then applying fiberglass mat onto the epoxy, spreading more epoxy over the mat to make sure it's super wet and soaking all that epoxy in, applying more fiberglass mat as needed, repeat that process, and then ultimately spreading the epoxy nice and smooth over the surface like a plastic spreader. After application, especially on the first coat, I would monitor to see how it was drying, and I saw it was a little bit runny. So on the second and third coats, I thickened the epoxy. I purchased a thickening agent and applied it to the epoxy mixture. So once you mix epoxy at the prescribed 5-to-1 ratio, you have about 20 to 25 minutes to actually work with it before it starts curing in your mixing bucket. So pay attention, and as soon as you mix it, start applying that epoxy. Also, if you get the mixture wrong, like if you go too heavy on either the resin or the hardener, that could compromise the integrity of the epoxy. So if you do that, if you actually mix the wrong portions, just dump that mixture. Tools and materials you'll need for this project include rags, paper towels, foam brushes, plastic spreaders to spread the epoxy evenly. Of course, you'll need the fiberglass mat, the epoxy resin and hardener mixture, and 2 separate containers because you have to mix them, stir sticks, and measuring buckets. After every coat is applied, sanding is important to remove rough edges and to even out the application. It's amazing how freshly laid fiberglass can actually have concealed sharp areas. So you really have to be careful when you run your hand over the epoxy after you've finished applying it, because you could cut yourself in the process. After 3 coats of epoxy fiberglass and sanding, I felt pretty comfortable with what I had in place. It wasn't perfect. There were still little imperfections, but I might go another 2 or 3 iterations, just making everything absolutely perfect. I don't think it needs to be perfect. So I decided to apply the next step, which is to apply a barrier coat. I used Interlux Interprotect to pretty much act like a primer so that the ensuing coats of bottom paint would adhere properly. The Interlux Interprotect barrier coat requires 3 parts of one liquid and 1 part of the other. So think of it much like epoxy. So you have the resin and the hardener, except the resin in this case is pretty much paint, or it looks a lot like paint. And then you have this extra additive that you put in so that it's going to cure, form a nice sealed substance. It did have to stand for 20 minutes after mixing before you actually apply it. That's what the instructions said, and I followed the directions. Everything seemed to go pretty smoothly. The instructions did suggest to look for air bubbles. I did not find any air bubbles in the mixture. I did notice that as I dabbed my foam brush into the bucket of this Interprotect, I noticed that it started losing its integrity after each dip. It got a little more saggy and a little more difficult to wield. So perhaps that is how quickly the product dries. Certainly after I applied it, you could see that it was adhering well and bonding with the surface and creating a seal. So that's where we stand. We have the Interlux coat on, and the next step will be applying bottom paint. I want to thank my subscribers. I really appreciate your support. If you've stayed to the end of the video, please consider pressing that like button. That would really help the channel grow. This is Sailor Eric. Thanks for watching.